All right, I've got 7 o'clock. Let's go ahead and get started. I see Mr. Nevins is here. Would you mind giving us the invocation?
You'd think I'd figured this out by now. Is it on?
Yes.
You would pray with me, please. Dear gracious and loving Father, thank you for your many and abundant blessings. Thank you for the ability to be involved in useful work and for the honor of bearing appropriate responsibilities. Thank you also for the freedom to gather and to direct our lives. Your word says that citizens ought to obey the governing authorities, since you have established those very authorities to promote peace and order and justice. Therefore, I pray for our mayor, for the city manager, the city officials, and this assembled council. I am asking that you would graciously grant them wisdom to govern amid the conflicting interests and issues of our times, a sense of the welfare and true needs of our people, a keen thirst for justice and rightness, confidence in what is good and fitting, the ability to work together in harmony even when there is honest disagreement. I also ask for personal peace in their lives and joy in their task. I pray for the agenda set before them today. Please give an assurance of what would please you and what would benefit those who live and work in and around our beloved city of Erlanger. And we ask these things in the name of your Son. Amen.
Amen. I now call the August 7th, 2018 regular meeting of City Council to order. Let's please stand and say a pledge to the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, Mrs. Hoffman, could you please take roll call?
Mr. Burke. Here. Mr. Cahill.
Here.
Miss Kyle. Here. Mr. Skidmore. Here. Miss Sedkamp. Here. Miss Cahill. Here. Mr. Montgomery. Here. Miss Skidmore. Here. Miss Pitts. Here. Mr. Nicely. Here. Miss Fetty. Here. Mr. Blankenship. Here.
All right, we have a quorum. All right, Council, you've received a copy of the minutes of the July 3rd, 2018 regular council meeting. Are there any additions or corrections to be made at this time? Seeing none, I'll entertain a motion to adopt as written. Motion by Mr. Cahill, second by Mrs. Fetty. Any discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Motion carried. Now we'll approve the agenda for this evening. So you've received a copy of the agenda for tonight's meeting. Are there any additions to be made at this time? Seeing none, I'll entertain a motion that we adopt this agenda. Motion by Mrs. Kyle, second by Mr. Montgomery. Any discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Motion carried. All right, we've got our special presentation this evening. No? I'm looking out in the audience. I'm not seeing Mr. Sithold out there from 777 Computers. All right, maybe we'll come back to that. All right, so then with that, we'll open it up to citizen comments. Is there anybody that has signed up to speak this evening? Diane? Is there a sign-up sheet? All right, Diana Nicely. Welcome.
My name is Diana Nicely. I'm here tonight to represent the Lloyd Alumni Association. I am the secretary on the board of the Alumni Association at Lloyd High School. We are having our fundraiser for the scholarship funds this September. It's on September 23rd at the high school from 1 to 4. The doors open at 12:30. We're looking for sponsorships. I know our company and Randy's office has sponsored, and we're looking for any sponsors. We have different dollar amounts ranging from $50 up to $1,000 and other opportunities. If anybody would like to come, our guest speaker is actually Tom Browning. That was the pitcher for the Reds. The doors open at 12:30. There's lunch provided. We also will be inducting 3 new alumni into the Hall of Fame this year. The scholarship fund, we award $16,000 each May to Lloyd seniors at Senior Honor Night. Without this function and everybody's dues and scholarship help, we would not be able to do that. Again, anybody that would like any opportunities can get a hold of me at my office or email me, and I'll be glad to help you. Or if you would like to come, the tickets are $15 in advance, $20 at the door. Thanks.
All right, thank you. Is there anybody else that didn't get a chance to sign up that would like an opportunity to speak this evening? All right, seeing none, I'll move on to the mayor's report. All right, so last week I was privileged to attend the police chief's annual banquet. The Erlanger PD received recognition for receiving their 5th certification of accreditation. So that accreditation comes about once every 4 years. So we've been accredited for just under 20 years now. So congratulations to our PD for that. It was a distinct honor to be able to have witnessed them receiving that honor. I received a call from Robin Cooper of KLC. I know many of the council members probably know him. He had talked about an issue with St. Henry. They're looking to fund part of their new work with public bonds. And they thought that maybe there would be somebody here this evening ready to speak about that. But I think really the better thing would be to talk about that at the next council committee meeting. So I'd like to ask for time at the next council committee meeting. It would be either Mr. Cooper or possibly, well, now his name's escaping me. He's one of the Fort Thomas commissioners. Roger Peterman, thank you very much. Read my mind. And they wanted to speak about the possibility of Erlanger making the bond commitment for they need a municipality to make that commitment. So we'll learn more about that before we make any decisions there. We've assembled some minor changes to the city council meeting ordinance, and I've distributed that among council. Would like to discuss that more as well at the next council committee meeting. That would be the 21st at 7 o'clock. I would like to try to start at 7 o'clock. And that's part of what's in that ordinance, starting the council committee meetings at the same time as the council meetings. August 9th at 1 o'clock, there's a groundbreaking for the St. Elizabeth Cancer Center. So I think if you guys can fit it into your schedule, that would be that is actually at the Edgewood campus. But that's an exciting happening there. It's at 1 o'clock. And then we all know that there's been quite a few issues with the Riggs Road work between the utilities, the road work, and just the ongoing work, trying to get everything done, you know, for the most part at one time there. We've had some neighbors that have been upset by the work, and I think rightfully so. And something that we've been discussing among staff and Mr. Gatlin is establishing a model right-of-way ordinance for Erlanger, establishing rules and guidelines that they need to follow inside our city that would carry across the city. Covington, Cold Spring, and Crescent Spring are working on similar model codes right now, and I think that's something also that we should talk more about at the next committee meeting. And that's all I have to discuss this evening. So we'll move on to the reports of committees. First up is Public Safety, Police. Mrs. Sedkamp, Mrs. Kyle.
Yes. As of June 26, for citizens who are not aware, we no longer have a dispatch center, sad to say. Hopefully it will all work out really well. All road units attended active shooter training at Lloyd High School this month, instructed by Detective Luce. Todd Mitchell was hired as a contract employee and will be working third shift. Erlanger Community Anti-Crime Team is up and running and already making drug arrests. We expect this position to continue to net a substantial number of arrests. For the first time in 16 years, the police department has switched uniforms. They began wearing these uniforms July 3rd. We hope to be more approachable and change with the times. They held Coffee with a Cop in the Super Bowl lot with Dunkin' Donuts, and canines did demonstrations, and it was well attended. The new cars have arrived and have been striped, just waiting on equipment to be installed. Detective Thornberry and wife Katie had a baby Nash Thornberry on July 4th, so congratulations to them. And Sergeant Rice graduated from the Academy of Police Supervision on July 27th, and so congratulations to Todd. And that's all I have.
I had the sincere pleasure of attending Phila Cruiser today. My gosh, my grandkids had the best time, and they thought it was so neat that they could help out other children less fortunate. So I turned them loose in Family Dollar. $100 later, they were finished shopping. But they were so delightful because I went and bought things for the teachers, you know, like Kleenex and Lysol and that type of thing. And then they picked out what they would like to have when they go to school. Lunch boxes and, you know, the like. So I look in the bottom of the basket and here's padlocks. And I said to Nash, my 5-year-old, I said, Nash, what are the locks for? He says, oh, Mimi, they're for their lockers. 5 years old, he thought to buy locks for the lockers. But anyway, Chief, do you know, I mean, it goes on for another 45 minutes. How are they doing, do you know?
Wow.
Isn't that incredible?
Incredible.
I just want to say one more thing. When I was waiting in line, there was a young lady that was in line behind me, and she just had a few items. And she said, are those for the children? And I said, yes, ma'am. And she said, I'm a recipient of Erlanger's gracious gifts. And she said, now that I can, I'm giving back. And I just touched my heart. So our community is special. The people here are just really special. And
Thank
Chief's
you.
in the house.
All right, thank you. Okay, next under public safety, we've got our fire EMS. Mrs. Pitts, Mrs. Fetty.
Okay, the fire department had some training last month. They are now adding foam to water, which helps distinguish fires better, different types of foams they're exploring right now. They trained along with Edgewood Fire Department in a large area at the old behavioral center out at St. E's for doing searches in large buildings with fire and smoke, and it's getting used to that. Lieutenant Rick Bowl received certification to investigate fires, and he's able now to determine if it's arson, and we don't have to use Kenton County for that anymore. Education Kids Club, they educated Kids Club on fire safety, and as they were educating them, they let the kids climb around on the apparatus, which they always enjoy. They attended Florence Freedom Hometown Hero Game, and that's where they recognized all the local first responders. They also discussed equipment spotlight. If you notice, there's 4 different type of fire hydrants out there with different colors on them. That determines the level of water that comes out, blue being the highest pressure and red being the lowest. And I also wanted to just briefly touch upon this past Saturday, there was a reunion put together by some of the former fire chiefs and firemen that worked with Chief Koenig. There was a ton of people that showed up. It was from all over the state. It was a beautiful tribute. He was a trooper. He stood out there for 3 hours and made sure he talked to every single person that was there. I can only say one thing about Tim Koenig. A few people I've known in my life are larger than life with their personalities, and he's definitely one of them, and this is very hard for many people. So I just want everybody to make sure they pray for the family and friends and respect their wishes for privacy. Thank you.
All right, Chief Whitaker, anything to add? All right, thank you. All right, then next we've got Public Works, Mr. Cahill, Mr. Skidmore.
Yes, the Woodland Hills Drive is in a Phase 2 reconstruction. The Birch Drive is in Phase 2 reconstruction. Silver Lake Avenue and Churchill Drive is in Phase 1. The Erlanger Road is in Phase 3 reconstruction. They're trying to work with the school as much as they can to try to keep the traffic flow going well. Silver Lake replacement project is still going on. And Public Works, they painted the handrails at the front of the building and the back of the building. I don't know whether you all noticed that or not, but it really looks nice. So, and our new Public Works Director, Mr. Peter Glenn, is in the house.
Week 4. No pressure, though.
Thank you. Anything to add? All right. All right, thank you. All right, then next we've got administration. Mrs. Skidmore, Mrs. Cahill. Mike.
I would like to request the first reading of the tax rate ordinance for fiscal year 19. Everyone received a copy of this ordinance in their council packet. The ordinance reflects the 2% decrease that was included in the budget.
Tonight?
Yes.
All right. Thank you. And
Just Sherry, do you have anything to add?
Mrs. Hoffman?
Just that our report was sent out, and you can find it online. That's all I have.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. And then next we've got Finance and Business Development. Mr. Blankenship, Mr. Montgomery.
The staff is continuing to process the closing of fiscal year 2018 and preparing the records for the annual audit. Our auditors are scheduled to conduct their field work in our offices September 20th through the 25th. That's all I have. Mr. Montgomery? Mr. Bodie? Thank you.
I will add one thing. I was having a conversation with the folks from NIRE and regarding the cinema site, and some exciting news there. They've got a tenant that has committed to half of the big building that you see along the highway, and they've got a letter of intent for the other half. So that building is technically full. And then, you know, of course, the Coca-Cola building is going in behind that with another 300,000 square feet. And then they've started the plans and starting to move forward on the final building, which is another 575,000 square feet. So they're cooking along there, and it's filling up fast. So there definitely was a need in our community. Okay, the next Codes, Building, and Zoning. Mr. Burke, Mr. Nicely.
Only thing we have is Dave did send out reports, code reports. Anybody got any questions?
Hit your mic.
I got you. All right, Dave sent out his reports for codes. If anybody's got any questions, give him a call. The only thing we needed to do is call a committee meeting for the 21st. The Wingate over here, once you all may have seen it, possibly put up some directional signs to their place. And that's all I have.
All right, thank you. Mr. Nicely?
I guess everybody knows they got the buildings tore down.
Oh, on Cowie.
Yes.
Yeah, that's a great point. Yeah, the Habitat for Humanity has proceeded with tearing those buildings down. What a huge improvement that is. Yeah.
But there's only one thing, though. You may have a trouble, because they had those big trucks. And it's overweighted, and when they hit the edge of the blacktop of the street, it will move all the way up the street on the other side. So that's,
Something to take a look
blacktop
at.
was floating.
Oh, yeah, so that's something certainly for Public Works to take a look at there on Cowie. Thank you.
Mr. Hahn, anything to say?
Yeah, I did, yes. Maybe we'll sneak him in right after these reports. Is there anything else to add, Mr. Hahn? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, so you've heard the reports of our committees. Do we entertain a motion that we adopt as presented? Motion by Mrs. Kyle, second by Mrs. Sedkamp. Any discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. All right, motion carried. So with that, let's take a step back to the special presentation, business spotlight of 777 computers. I see Mr. Stidholt here in the, yeah, please. Welcome.
First, I want to apologize for coming in late. When Dave called me and offered me the time to do this, I was driving, and it never went in my calendar. So here I am now. I was actually swear he could go check his emails. I emailed him at 6:58, thinking like, it's coming up soon. When is that? And then I was like, I went to the Facebook page and I said, council meeting 7 o'clock. I was like, oh my God. And Jessica actually texted me as I was like already trying to fly up here, because I work down here in Erlanger, but I live in Florence, and I was all the way back home already. I had just left work maybe a half hour, 45 minutes earlier, but.
Well, glad you made it.
Anyways, I'm a local business here in Erlanger. We originally opened up in 2010 where the CVS is now. We were right next door to Ameristop, kind of tucked in the back of the building. We were there from 2010 through 2015 when they tore down the building. In 2014, we had heard the rumors about CVS, so we opened a second store just in case if things happened, and luckily we did. So, you know, we just basically operated out of the Florence store and kind of left it at that, because with CVS coming in, it displaced 11 businesses. So real estate was kind of taken up at that moment. We saw a building open up down the road here by Salvador's Pizza, and came back last year again. So we're back in Erlanger, which is where we wanted to come back to. Basically, we're open 7 days a week. What we do is most of our business is repairing customers' computers. We're like a break-fix kind of operation. Your computer's not running right, or really any electronics. Anything that plugs in the wall, we can repair it. So if it's not working right, we fix it. Then we also sell refurbished computers that come with a 7-month warranty. I think I just said we're open 7 days a week. We still have the Florence store, so we're 2 locations. I have 8 employees between both locations combined. So they come with all kinds of different skill sets. So, you know, I've hired people much smarter than myself. So you know, it's when you're a one-man operation, you're limited, but as you grow, you can bring in, you know, other thought processes that help you kind of go outside your own box. I don't know, how much more am I supposed to be talking here?
You know, one thing, I know we talked about this briefly, but 777, it's not because you are a slot machine fanatic,
right, yeah.
Right? Why is it 777?
My initials are RSS, which if you look at like a phone keypad is 777. So I've used those numbers all my life. I actually have the 777 tattoo on my wrist. It was before the company. I got that done on July 7th of 2007 because the date was 777. You know, so like I said, I live in Florence. Me and my wife, we have 4 biological children and then 2 foster kids that we're adopting. I don't know. I don't know what to say.
Yeah. Well, I mean, something I'll just mention is that if you haven't stopped into the store, you really need to. It's kind of, I don't know, maybe not intimidating, but it just, you can't see anything from the street. It's all such dark tinted glass, but you walk inside and everything is very clean and organized, and it looks like a lot of great prices on computers and things as well.
Yeah, my
So
guys do
it's a
not
great
make
resource.
commission. First 7 days is money back guarantee, so it doesn't make sense for us to push something on you that you don't want. You know, my guys aren't salesmen, they're more of advisors. You know, they'll help connect you with what you need for what you're going to be doing with it. And if you feel that they connected you with the wrong device, like I said, you could just come back, get your money back for 7 days. And then we have a 7-week exchange policy. So, you know, if you still feel, you know, after, you know, a month and a half that it's not right for you, you can exchange it for something else. So.
Well, thank you very much for taking your
Yeah.
time this evening. If you haven't already talked with Mr. Christofield, he's right there in the blue shirt. He'll be the guy that would help get that connection to the link on the website, the city website, to your website.
Okay.
All right. Thank you again.
Yep, thank you.
You need to move to Erlanger.
What's that?
You need to move to Erlanger.
Move to Erlanger?
Yeah, you won't have to drive so far.
Go ahead, Mrs. Fetty.
I just wanted to thank Ryan for his leadership in getting the Erlanger Business Council up and running. He is one of the founding members of the leadership committee, and his guidance and support has been phenomenal. And I know with working with you and the other leaders in our community, it's going to be a very successful venture. So thank you.
Excellent. All right, thank you. All right, so then moving on, skipping back down on the agenda, the reports of representatives. Is there any reports this evening, Mrs. Kyle?
Yes, I have a few things from the Historical Society. Next meeting is August the 8th at 7 p.m. That's tomorrow. Missy Andres will speak on the art of quilting. If you get on Facebook, you can see her quilts. They're phenomenal, beautiful. So if you want to learn how to quilt or get some ideas, she'll be there. The depot is open from dawn to dusk, and anyone who's interested in a tour of the museum and the caboose, you need to call 727-2525, and Pat Hahn will be contacted. Heritage Day yard signs are available because that's coming up soon. So if you would see our city clerk, Sherry Hoffman, she can give you one of those signs to put in your yard. Proceeds from the Historical Society's annual yard sale goes towards items for the museum and the caboose, and that was this past Saturday, I believe, August the 4th. And September 16th is Heritage Day. The Historical Society is sponsoring a photo contest. So anyone interested, please call the museum at 727-2630 or email a photo to the Historical Society at thecityofErlanger.com. It's actually historical@cityofErlanger.com. And we do have some members of the Historical Society here tonight, so I want to welcome them to our meeting. So if you have any questions, they're here.
All right, thank you. Any other reports? Go ahead, Mrs. Skidmore.
Okay. The August 7th Kenton County Alliance meeting lasted from noon until 1:30. School Resource Officer Joel Shepard spoke for about 40 minutes, and he discussed the pros and cons of the DARE program. The Erlanger Police and the Ellesmere Police Departments are working on a new program that is more up-to-date than the original DARE program, and there will be more information on that at a later date. Tank has agreed to let Kenton County Alliance use the buses again for their signs that they put on the side of the buses, and then it gets a lot of attention, and it doesn't cost us anything. And Kenton County Alliance was the only recipient of the CARA grant in the state of Kentucky. There were 240 applicants, and that is a 3-year grant. And Kenton County Alliance also requested an extension on our other grant. We've been operating for 10 years in northern Kentucky, and the extension was granted. End of report.
All right, great, thank you. Any other reports this evening? Seeing none, we'll move on. To the reports of city operations. City Engineer, Mr. Viox.
Yes, sir. I'd like to tell the council that they made a great decision back in March when they decided to fund the improvement of the Nelson Road, Narrows Road intersection. It was suggested at that time it should be coordinated with the list development because of some advantages that we anticipated. That's proven to be the fact. A couple of things have occurred on that project that are beneficial and certainly interesting to the people that live in that area. Mr. Kramer and Mr. Hahn went to the Planning Commission and got approval to move the sidewalk to the side of the road on Nelson where we currently have a sidewalk, and the Dries Company is going to pay for it. It's going to be included in this project, so the sidewalk is going to be extended from the end of the dead-end section on Nelson Road down to the intersection. Secondly, I was able to get the Water District to pay for the relocation of the 16-inch water transmission main there, so the city didn't have to absorb that cost. And lastly, we had a home run by coordinating this with the Dries Development because the Dries Company has offered to provide the earthwork necessary to build the fill. So at no cost, we have the access to the soil to do the work. And lastly, it came in so far under our estimate that I gave you back in February that I've included an extension of the sidewalk to the Glades, which means that anybody back in Nelson Road area with the completion of this project that the city's doing will be able to walk from that area all the way to Turkey Foot Road via Nelson Road, the Glades, Spring Valley Park, and then Spring Valley Drive while we're waiting for the completion of the sidewalk along Narrows Road and to Turkey Foot. So with that, when we review the bids shortly, you'll see that we saved approximately $91,000 under the estimate that I gave you back in February. Thank you.
That's great news. Thank you so much. All right, our city attorney, Mr. Gatlin.
Just a few things, Mayor. We have a couple housekeeping ordinances on for tonight. First is the second reading of the codified ordinances. That's just a housekeeping matter, which will then codify all ordinances through ordinance number 2463. The second one is the pay wage scale ordinance, which is also a second reading, which just did some level of a cost of living adjustment to all of the wage scales. The big issues tonight, which is kind of piggybacking off of what the mayor said, is the resolutions related to the Erlanger Commerce Center bond buildings 2 and 3. The first resolution is a refunding, more or less like a refinancing resolution. So you'll be refunding the prior issued bonds and issuing new bonds, and then the second resolution is just an issuing of bonds. The dollar amounts there are pretty substantial. Mr. Parsons is in the audience and represents the developer. Is there anything you want to say or comment on these?
First of all, thank you to the city and council for your support for these two projects. As was explained earlier, the parcel 2, which was going to be one building, now is going to be split into two, one being for the Coca-Cola lease building and the other for a new building that's going to be under construction. So both projects are going to be moving forward. And they'll probably be closing pretty simultaneously at the same time with the lender. So you'll see quite a bit of construction going on relative to that. And I'll also just remind the public and council that even though these bonds are issued by the city of Erlanger, the city has absolutely no responsibility for the debt. It's totally, it's a private activity bond that it will be supported and paid for exclusively by the developer and the tenants here. Thank you.
Thanks, Jim. That's all I have, Mayor.
All right, thank you. City Council Attorney, Mr. Wickman.
I have nothing to report.
All right, then the City Administrator, Mr. Kramer.
Yes, sir. I do not have an update on the school zone. I know it's getting very close to school, so I'm waiting to hear back on that. Everything we've submitted seems positive. They've asked for everything from the school, and the school's presented it. So I'm hoping to get some good news here in the next week. I will present on some Duke projects that are going to be coming up, more projects in the Erlanger Road, Riggs area, and I'll be doing that at the committee meeting after I have a couple confirmations from Duke. We've had a few meetings with them this week already, and I'm trying to lock them in on some stuff before we do that, but I'll have at least something to present at the next committee meeting. The Madison Pike Health and Wellness Center opened this week. This is a Care Here facility that we entered into an agreement with Edgewood, Independence, and SD1. It's a continuation of our self-insured health plan through the city. That this project should save both money for the employees and the city. It's no cost for the employees to go and get health care. They have a pharmacy there, so anything that's non-narcotic, they can actually walk out with the prescription, and that's for them. There will be no co-pays if they use that facility. And then on the back side of that, it's a lot cheaper for us to use that than it would be for most primary care. So it should be a win-win for both of us, and we'll see how that progresses this coming month once they get in full swing. We have submitted many grants over the last 9 months for Mr. Bailey. One that was recently denied was the grant for Houston Road, which was a $4.5 million grant. We are looking into other options. There is one more grant that's available, and then we do have a couple other options that Mr. Bailey is working right now, but that is kind of a upset for the city to lose that kind of a grant. But we will move forward and try to figure out a way to complete that. We are still waiting to hear back for the $220,000 grant, which will continue the sidewalks from the Dries property to Turkey Foot via Narrows and Brightleaf. And what that should do, once that's complete, there should be no more dead-end sidewalks on the east side of town. And that's the goal. That should finalize all the construction that has gone over the last 10, 15 years there, and it should complete that. So we're very hopeful in that. That seems, I guess, going to be a grant that will be approved. They were very eager for us to submit it, so we're hoping to get some good news on that in this next coming month. Pending your questions, that's all I have.
All right, I don't see any questions. So you've heard the reports of the representatives of city operations. Do I entertain a motion that we adopt as presented? Motion by Mrs. Fetty, second by Mrs. Kyle. Any discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. All right, motion carried. Mrs. Hoffman, do we have any correspondence to review this evening?
So we received a letter from the Smeltzer family. They just wanted to thank everyone for listening to their proposal when they came to the council meeting. And they also wanted to express their sincere thanks to our excellent EMS staff at Narrows Road. They really appreciate the time everyone took from their busy schedule. And we also received a thank you card from Rhonda Wolf, just thanking the city for remembering their family. Her mother-in-law had passed away. And that's all I have, sir.
All right, thank you. All right, next we have the bids. Narrows and Nelson Road intersection project. Mr. Biox?
Yes, sir. If you go to your last sheet, the handout I left on your desk, we had three bidders. The three bidders in the columns of the first column is Lonker Construction Company, second column is JPS Construction Incorporated, and the third is Paul Michaels and Sons Incorporated. The Lonker Construction total bid is $363,373. The JPS Construction bid is $370,097.10, and the third bidder, Michaels, is $507,370.50. If you go back to the front page, some of the things I discussed in my report, if you look at the second item, I've added on $30,000 to extend the sidewalk from this project to the Glades. We've also deducted down in the last couple of items the cost that the Water District is going to pay, and also the cost that Dries Company is going to pay toward the sidewalk extension down to the intersection. So the bottom line there says we're under our estimate by $91,212.24. That's the estimate you reviewed at the time you approved the project. It's my recommendation we award the work to Blanco Construction Company.
All right, we have a motion by Mr. Cahill, a second by Mrs. Sudkamp. Any discussion? All in favor say aye. All right, motion carried. Thank you, Mr. Biatz.
Thank you.
Great work. All right, then, next we've got old business. Any old business to discuss? Mrs. Kyle?
Yeah, I don't know if this is old business or new business, but our Historical Society is here tonight, and I think we were wondering if we were going to have a committee meeting to discuss some of the issues. I didn't know if Mr. Kramer was going to bring that up or not, so I just wanted to ask.
Yeah, we did plan on discussing it at the next committee meeting.
Okay, and I think Mrs. Hahn gave you all a very good review of what's happening, so that you can read that before the next committee meeting and have an idea of what they're going to be discussing or what we're going to discuss. Okay, thank
Great,
you.
Great, thank you. Thanks
All
for
right.
bringing that up. Does everybody have a copy? Okay, I'll get a copy, please. All right, thank you for coming this evening, and thanks for providing this. And this is mainly involving the administrative assistant for the Depot Museum, correct? And that's what we'll be discussing at the committee meeting? Yeah, okay, thank you. Just to clarify. Wonderful, thank you. Any other old business? Any new business? Mrs. Fetty?
I just wanted to talk briefly about the second Erlanger Business Council meeting that was held last month. We had over 60 people in attendance. This was the first meeting that the leadership committee ran the majority of the meeting. We are trying to figure out the direction, whether it's more of a networking, more of an advocacy group, or a mixture of both. So we're still in the process of figuring out the direction. And you know, just from that meeting, we had 6 additional people show interest in being a part of the leadership team. So this is something that, you know, the city has facilitated getting started, but now the business community has shown such great support of it that they're going to be basically taking over the reins. So it's amazing. The next meeting is going to be August 28th. The doors are going to open at 8 o'clock. The meeting starts promptly at 8:30. So between 8 and 8:30 is just open networking. So 8:30 to 9:30 is our meeting. We try to make sure that it stays right within that hour, make sure that we are very aware of everybody's time. So love to see everybody there.
And the plan, is it the plan to have the meeting on the last Tuesday of the month?
Yes, for right now, it's going to be the last Tuesday of every month. There is discussion on having it twice a month. It would be the second Tuesday and the fourth Tuesday. But the leadership committee is still working on that. And just for August, it will be just once a month.
All right, thank you very much. All right, any other new business? Mr. Skidmore?
Yes, I guess it's with the school supplies and the police today. I think, from what I understand, Newcomers Funeral Home made a large donation to that. So I'd like to thank them for doing what they did.
Yeah, they seem to be a great community partner.
Yeah,
Looking
I
forward
think
to
it was about $500.
Wow,
Yeah.
incredible. Thank you. Any others? Mr. Blankenship?
I recently met with Bob McNichol, who purchased a home on Commonwealth, where the White House, and he was suggesting we may want to look at possibly zoning that area to allow mixed use or commercial, and I'd like to at least have a committee to discuss that if we could. On Commonwealth there, he's the White House where Dan Francis used to live. Yeah. Into that
Say his
area.
last name again?
McNichol, isn't it? It's Bob McNichol.
McNichol?
Mhm.
Okay.
I was saying, you had mentioned to me about possibly looking at rezoning that area where you purchased, and I was suggesting we have a committee meeting to at least discuss the issue. Thank Thank you.
Okay. That would be to put it, you want to put it on the agenda for next?
If we could,
The
that'd
next
be fine,
committee
yeah.
meeting? Okay, so that'd be the, what do we say it was?
21st?
21st, thank you. Yeah, okay, so we'll be back here at the 21st, on the 21st. All right, any other new business? Seeing none, then we'll move on to legislation. First is an ordinance, the codified ordinances, second reading.
It's an ordinance of the City of Erlanger in Kenton County, Kentucky, approving and adopting a supplement to the Code of Ordinances of the city. By summary, this is the 2018 S2 supplement to the Code of Ordinances of the City of Erlanger and is made a part of the permanent records of the city. And as stated, it is through the adopted ordinance 2463.
All right, do we entertain a motion to adopt as presented? Motion by Mrs. Sedkamp, second by Mrs. Skidmore. Any discussion? All right, roll call vote.
Mr. Nicely? Ms. Cahill?
Yes, ma'am.
Ms. Pitts? Mr. Montgomery? Ms. Fetty?
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Blankenship?
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Skidmore?
Yes, ma'am.
Ms. Sedkamp?
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Cahill?
Yes, ma'am.
Ms. Skidmore?
Yes, ma'am.
Ms. Kyle? Mr. Burke?
All right, motion carried. Next is an ordinance regarding the pay wage scale. This is also a second reading.
It's an ordinance of the City of Erlanger in Kenton County, Kentucky, amending the personnel pay plan for all Erlanger employees and non-elected city officers. By summary, this is modifying it based on a cost of living adjustment. You'll see the Excel spreadsheet which lists the bands A through R. Strict through is what the old minimum and maximum were, and underlined is what the new minimum and maximum are.
All right, do we have a motion? Motion by Mrs. Kyle, second by Mrs. Pitts. Any discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Oh, excuse me, I'm sorry. Roll call vote again, I'm sorry, excuse me.
Ms. Cahill? Mr. Nicely? Mr. Burke? Ms. Kyle? Ms. Skidmore?
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Cahill?
Yes, ma'am.
Ms. Sedkamp?
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Skidmore?
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Blankenship?
Yes, ma'am.
Ms. Fetty?
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Montgomery? Ms. Pitts?
Yes, ma'am.
All right, motion carried. The next is another ordinance for the fiscal year 2018-2019 tax rates. This is a first reading.
It's an ordinance of the City of Erlanger in Kenton County, Kentucky, providing for the annual assessment of all real estate and personal property within the City of Erlanger, which is subject to taxation thereby for the fiscal year beginning on July 1, 2018, and ending on June 30, 2019, and providing for the payment and collection of such taxes and the penalties and interest thereon, and describing the purpose for which the taxes so collected shall be appropriated and used. As indicated in Section 2, the ad valorem tax on real property shall be at the rate of $0.323 for each $100 of value thereof, and the ad valorem tax on all personal property other than motor vehicles shall be at the rate of $0.565 for each $100 of value thereof.
All right, I'd ask Mrs. Hoffman to please note the first reading of that ordinance. Next is a municipal order regarding surplus property.
It's a municipal order of the City of Erlanger in Kenton County, Kentucky, making the written determinations required by KRS 82083 for the sale or other disposition of property owned by the city. Attached to the municipal order is a spreadsheet which indicates the items that are being disposed of and the disposal method.
All right, do we have a motion? Motion by Mrs. Kyle, second by Mrs. Fetty. Any discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. All right, motion carried. Next is a resolution regarding the body-worn cameras.
This is related to a grant. This is the Kentucky Office of Homeland Security Body-Worn Camera LEPP program, and it's a resolution of the City of Erlanger, Kentucky, authorizing the mayor to make application for and upon arrival to enter into an agreement with the Kentucky Office of Homeland Security to execute any documents which are deemed necessary by the Kentucky Office of Homeland Security to facilitate and administer the project and to act as the authorized correspondent of the project.
All right, do we have a motion? Motion by Mrs. Sedkamp, second by Mrs. Kyle. Any discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. All right, motion carried. Next is another resolution regarding the Erlanger Commerce Center Bond Building Number 2.
This is a resolution of the City Council of the City of Erlanger, Kentucky, authorizing the issuance of up to $18 million maximum aggregate principal amount taxable industrial building refunding and revenue bonds, Series 2018A, in order to assist ECC Building 2 LLC or assigns to finance the acquisition, construction, and equipping of an industrial building facility located within the City of Erlanger, Kentucky, and to improve said facility, authorizing the issuance of additional bonds, providing for the pledge of revenues for the payment of said bonds, authorizing an amended and restated lease agreement between the City of Erlanger, Kentucky and ECC Building 2 LLC or assigns with respect to the facility, authorizing a trust indenture appropriate for the protection and disposition of such revenues, and further to secure the payment of said bonds, authorizing a bond purchase agreement, authorizing a home office payment agreement, and the execution of a mortgage granting an interest in the fee.
All right, do we have a motion? Motion by Mrs. Kyle, second by Mrs. Fetty. Any discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. All right, motion carried. Next is another resolution regarding the Erlanger Commerce Center Bond Building 3.
This is a resolution of the City Council of the City of Erlanger, Kentucky, authorizing the issuance of up to $22 million maximum aggregate principal amount taxable industrial building revenue bonds, Series 2018B, in order to assist ECC Building 3 LLC or assigns to finance the acquisition, construction, and equipping of an industrial building facility located within the City of Erlanger, Kentucky, and to improve said facility, authorizing the issuance of additional bonds, providing for the pledge of revenues for the payment of said bonds, authorizing an agreement of lease between the City of Erlanger, Kentucky and ECC Building 3 LLC or assigns with respect to the facility, authorizing a trust indenture appropriate for the protection and disposition of such revenues, and further to secure the payment of said bonds, authorizing a bond purchase agreement, authorizing a home office payment agreement, and the execution of a mortgage granting an interest in the fee.
All right, do we have a motion? Motion by Mrs. Kyle, second by Mrs. Skidmore. She's been raising every time. Sorry, I keep seeing our third. Any discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. All right, signing that right now. Do I have a motion to adjourn? Motion by Mrs. Kyle, second by Mrs. Fetty. Any discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Motion carried. Meeting adjourned.
It's before 8 o'clock.
Are you sick?
It was after those 5-minute readings.